Hello and welcome friend. In this lecture we will try to look at some of the chmod command which we have left in the previous session. So we will continue that, and then we will look into change of ownership, which is chown command, and there is another command for changing the group, which is chgroup. So we'll try to look at some of this command. So we have already gone through change mode to change the different type of permissions with respect to user, group and others for read, write and execute permissions. So let's look at a typical file, and we see that here in this particular file, if we see here, we have all the permissions: read, write and execute for users, and then for groups read, write, execute, and again for others read, write and execute. So far so good. Now if we look here, there is a directory here. For a file it is okay, but for directory, suppose if we want to change the permissions of that directory as well as all the subsequent contents inside that. So if you look at this test directory, it is a directory which means D, and then it has read, write, execute permissions for user. For group it's only read and execute, no write permissions. So let's suppose for group I want to give the write permissions, as well as for group I want to give for as well as for others I want to give the write permissions. I can do it on the top level directory. If I go inside this directory, there are other contents, there are sub contents folders that will not be allowed to get the permissions if I give the top level folder. So let's try this by giving the top level folder 777 to this test. Now let's look at the permissions, ls-l for test, and if you want to see just the contents, the directory permissions, you can say ls-ld. Now you see ls-ld test directory, we can see that it is read, write, execute, all the permissions has been granted for the test directory. But test directory, inside the test directory there is a directory 1 2 3, and then there is some file. Those permissions are not changed, those permissions are still same. To double very sure and verify, we can go inside the directory and see. You see, this is still not have the right permissions for this. So if you want to do that, there is a command called recursive permissions, and the way recursive permissions work is -r. So if you apply that on the top level folder, it keeps on going recursively till whatever nested level you have all the files and folders. So once we give this, and we of course test folder will be having the right permissions. If you see here, test folder, it got the right permissions, and let's get inside this and see everything get all the permissions. So the command is chmod -r777, and even inside one folder 1, if you go, there will be another subsequent folders, those permissions are applied to those folders also. So -r means recursive. Now if you look into the permissions here for any files or folder, you see there are two fields. So this is a permissions field, and then this we have already seen that how many links are there, which we have seen in some of the previous video. Now this is user, and then this is a group. Now if I want to change the group, or maybe I have a special privilege, some kind of administrative task group, so I want to make this particular file a part of some group, I can change that. So there is a command called change group. With change group you have to specify, and I have a group called Mike. So mind it, this belongs to user Shakil, but there is a user Mike as well as group Mike. So I want to change the group Mike for this particular file called file3, and since Mike is a different user, different group, I cannot just assign the group to Mike, so I have to say sudo. Now if I run this command here, ls-l, you see this was belonging to Shakil, user Shakil, group Shakil. Now it is user Shakil, but group belongs to Mike, so this belongs to my group. So whatever permissions my group has, this file will automatically inherit those permissions. There is another way to change the group ownership, and with that you can change group and the user both. So let's suppose I have another user called John in my system. So the command is like this: chown, and then you have to say user John, and then you want to change the group also change. So from Mike I will change to John, from Shakil also I will change to John. So both user and group will change, and this is for file 3. And I have to give sudo because John is a different user, and right now I'm logged in with user Shakil, so I need a special privilege. Now let's look at the permissions. This is belonging to John and John. So earlier we started with Shakil and Shakil. Shakil is a user and then Shakil is a group. Here John is a user and John is a group, and we could have it differently, maybe John Mike or Mike John. We could do it in either way. So let's suppose we'll do it. We can change it to Mike and John, and now if I look here, it will be Mike and John, two different things. So we can change the group ownership like this. If we want to do it recursively, there is an option called -r, similar to chmod recursive option, so it will apply for all the files and folders. So let's suppose if I try to apply the same thing into a top level folder called test here, and if I apply test, and let's suppose if I go here inside the test, you see everything got changed. But okay, I think I didn't apply the -r options. Let me do it again, I'm sorry. So let's apply the -r options, which is recursively. Let's go inside the test folder, and you see everything belongs to Mike and John. Everything was Shakil and Shakil except for one which we have changed. Now everything belongs to Mike and John. So if you want to change the ownership recursively, you have to apply -r option. Change group options, if you need to change groups, chgrp with some group name for the files or folder name, you can do that. And of course you have to do sudo because you have to be a super user to run this command, and but you can live with change ownership. So change ownership is more than sufficient. If you want to look in the system what all the users and groups are present, there's a command called getent, and if you want to see the user, you have to type password and it will list out all the password. So if you see one more thing, and some of you who are aware that this is nothing but the contents of etc password, so you can directly open in the vi and etc password and you can look inside the contents. So this is exactly the same content. So getent password will tell you all the users present in the system by fetching the data from etc password, and getent group will get all the groups in the system, and this is again similar to etc group. So there is a etc password which is for all the users, and etc group which is for all the users, for all the groups. So this is the same command which fetches the data from the etc group. So these are the two commands which you might need to look at some of the groups and users in the system. So thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.